The rivers of Qinghe flow as they have for 1,000 years, carving paths through mountains that watched dynasties rise and collapse into footnotes. The winds move across terraced fields, where rice grows according to rhythms older than any sect's founding text. Mist clings to pine forests, where hermits supposedly achieve enlightenment, though honestly, most of them just get really good at being cold and hungry. The Jianghu breathes here, endless, indifferent. And through these fields, moving with the unhurried confidence of something that has never experienced a single consequence in its entire existence, waddles a goose. This goose does not cultivate internal energy. It has never studied the 18 dragon-subduing palms or any classical form. It possesses no teacher, acknowledges no sect, traces no lineage. It just waddles. And somehow, this makes it the most dangerous entity in all of Yanu's 16 prefectures. The people call it Goose Heaven Emperor, not ironically, but as an accurate classification, the way you would classify a typhoon or a plague, or any act of God that shows up, ruins everything, and leaves without explanation. Notice something strange about Qinghe. Aunt Han, who sheltered you when you first arrived, who knows more than she says, who has letters hidden in her room hinting at old Jianghu wisdom. She never mentions the goose. Not once. The scholars scattered throughout the prefectures write extensive treatises on cultivation methods, sect politics, historical disasters. But the goose exists only in footnotes, in vague references, in the kind of documentation you write when you cannot actually explain what you witnessed. The Imperial Guards stand at the palace gates as heaven's mandate made flesh, unkillable embodiments of Song bureaucratic authority, with health pools suggesting the developers really want you to understand these represent cosmic order itself. And the goose cannot be killed either. But the goose has no mandate, no heaven backing it, no bureaucracy justifying its existence. Aunt Han leaves before major calamities. The scholars write warnings after disasters occur. The guards stand perfectly still, defending a system already collapsing from within. And the goose was already there, waddling through all of it, completely unbothered. Here is what you need to understand about where winds meet. This is not heroic wuxia, where righteous heroes defeat evil through superior cultivation. This is late dynasty wuxia, institutions rotting from inside, legitimate authority ringing increasingly hollow. The real danger never coming from hierarchies you can see, but from forces that refuse to participate in hierarchies at all. 5 dynasties chaos bleeding into Song formation. The Jianghu no longer romantic, just surviving. And the goose fits this theme so perfectly, it cannot possibly be accidental. In Confucianism, which structures every palace interaction, every sect ranking, every NPC who measures worth through position, power is legitimized through place in cosmic order. The Imperial Guards are this philosophy compressed into martial form. They do not fight for personal glory. They are instruments of heaven's will, and their unkillable nature is a statement. When legitimate authority aligns with cosmic approval, it becomes absolute. Except the goose is also unkillable, and the goose has no rank, no position, no place in any hierarchy Confucian philosophy would recognize. The Imperial Guard represents what power looks like when it must explain itself, when it must justify strength through heaven's mandate and bureaucratic approval. The goose represents what power looks like when explanation is unnecessary. Heaven's mandate, it turns out, does not include goose insurance. Aunt Han understands this, which is why she never warns you. Not because she forgot, but because some things in the Jianghu are not meant to be dealt with. They are meant to be avoided by anyone wise enough to recognize avoidance as the only intelligent response. She shelters you from sect politics, from imperial entanglements, from cultivation disputes, but not from the goose. Because shelter implies the possibility of protection, and you cannot be protected from something existing outside every framework protection operates within. This is old Jianghu wisdom. Knowing which forces cannot be controlled, which entities should not be engaged, which parts of the world you simply walk around. The goose is one of those parts. Aunt Han knows this. You will learn this. Probably the hard way. Taoism offers a different answer, and where winds meet is saturated with it. Hermits in mountains, wandering heroes refusing institutional affiliation, NPCs surviving by intuition rather than doctrine. Wu Wei, action through non-action. The greatest masters spend decades learning to stop forcing outcomes, to align with natural flow so completely that effort and effortlessness become indistinguishable. Notice the pattern in Yanyu's 16 prefectures. Those who explain their power lose it. Those who cultivate according to proper methods die young. Those who organize and rank and systematize their strength, they fall dramatically, often in moments that seem designed to prove their mastery meant nothing. But the wandering heroes who left their sects, who abandoned formal cultivation, who refused to explain their choices, they survive. Not because they are stronger, but because they stopped trying to be strong according to anyone else's definition. The goose is the final wandering hero. It never joined a sect because it was never looking for one. It never left because it was never inside anything to begin with. It exists in such perfect non-participation that every Taoist master spending decades in caves trying to achieve Wu Wei should feel personally embarrassed. The Taoist classics never accounted for feathers. This was their mistake. The monks in Where Winds Meets temples understand this better than anyone. They provide reflection, ambiguous guidance, spaces for contemplation, but they rarely intervene directly. Buddhism here is observational, not heroic, witnessing suffering rather than solving it. And the monks do not fight the goose, not because they cannot, but because fighting would require believing control is possible, that intervention can change what simply is. Even monks avert their eyes when the goose passes. Enlightenment, it turns out, is knowing when to pretend you did not see that. There is a Taoist concept, the uncarved block, pure potential before refinement shapes it into something limited. Every master in Where Winds Meet is carved. The Confucian official carved into rank, the sect leader carved into doctrine, even the wandering hero carved by choosing to wander, which is still a choice, still a carving. Even Aunt Han is carved by her wisdom. She knows when to leave, which means she has been shaped by that knowledge into someone defined by avoidance. The goose is the uncarved block that gained sentience and decided violence was a reasonable response to existence, but never gained enough consciousness to question whether violence needed reasoning. It has never been refined toward any goal. It exists in perfect, undifferentiated potential, and trying to categorize its power is like trying to describe what color potential is before light strikes anything. This is why it cannot be killed. Because killing requires treating something as a specific target, destroyed through specific methods. And the goose is not specific enough to target. This is why power in Where Winds Meet is measured in geese. The game is not measuring how strong you are. It is measuring the distance between you and the only strength that exists without needing frameworks. The strength to simply be, because being happened, and you are part of it. You accumulate geese not because you are becoming more like the goose, but because you are becoming more measurable, more carved, more comprehensible within systems that can quantify you. And the more measurable you become, the further you drift from what the goose already is. Which is either profound or ridiculous, and the game is betting you cannot tell the difference. Every character in Where Winds Meet asks the same question. How should power be used? The Imperial Guards answer, through legitimate authority. The Daoist hermits answer, through alignment with the natural way. The Buddhist monks answer, through transcendence of attachment. The goose asks a different question entirely. Why are you asking? And that question, that refusal to participate in the conversation about how power should be legitimized, is more powerful than any answer the conversation could produce. The people of Qinghe call it Goose Heaven Emperor, not because it rules, but because even heaven steps aside when it passes. Not from respect, respect implies acknowledging status, but from simple recognition that some forces existed before heaven organized itself into bureaucracy. Aunt Han leaves. The scholars write footnotes. The guards stand motionless. The monks avert their eyes. And the goose waddles through Yanu's 16 prefectures, completely unbothered by any system claiming to govern reality, because it exists prior to governance itself. So, Happy New Year. May your 2026 be peaceful and prosperous. May you measure your progress in geese and never mistake the measurement for what cannot be measured. May you learn what Aunt Han already knows. But wisdom is recognizing which forces cannot be controlled. And may you never misclick a healing prompt, because some lessons you only learn once. Because in the world of Where Winds Meet, everyone is chasing some form of immortality, be it Confucian virtue, Daoist cultivation, Buddhist enlightenment, or hundreds of hours optimizing progression through systems promising mastery. The goose already achieved it, not through any path, but through never leaving the pathless state every path tries to return you to, which is either the deepest wisdom Nettie's Everstone never programmed, or nothing whatsoever, or perhaps both. Probably both. Either way, the goose does not care which interpretation you choose. The goose has never cared. The goose will never care.